سالكا سبل المعالي مخلصا ترجو من الرحمن رفعة منزلي.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله وصلى الله وبارك وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وبعد. The idea of collecting a number of ahadith on contagion, pandemics, and related matters was born just as the second wave of COVID-19 infections was beginning to rise in South Africa. A medical professional requested texts from the seminal sources of Islam that would counter a narrative in which religion was being pitted as inexorably anti-science. What began as a handful of hadith texts grew into a collection of 10 ahadith on adopting preventative measures during pandemics. But the sudden exponential rise of the second wave brought home the realization that the Sunnah does in fact address a number of other aspects to pandemics as well, aspects from which the public would indeed have great benefit. In response, this collection developed into the time-honored Arba'een format of the Muhaddithin. In the course of compilation, the need for a commentary became apparent. Much of the furore around COVID-19 was being fueled by either ignorance of what the Sunnah teaches in this regard or misunderstandings about how the ulama resolved the apparent conflict of texts, or an unfortunate reluctance to acknowledge the existence of a very orthodox traditional discourse on contagion and pandemics at variance with what was purported with vehemence to be the only legitimate position. Much as the vehemence of the present discourse is regretted, its causes are also understood. This is not the first time in history that the impact of concepts such as contagion and pandemics upon the most sensitive areas of our faith, tawheed, yaqeen, tawakkul, and qadr, becomes palpable. It was but yesterday that Sayyidina Abu Ubaidah radiallahu ta'ala anhu asked Amirul Mu'mineen Sayyidina Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu ta'ala anhu if he was fleeing from qadr. This collection takes its title from the profundity of Sayyidina Umar's reply, "Indeed, we flee from Allah's qadr to Allah's qadr." Situations such as the one we find ourselves in leave no time for settling personal scores or responding to taunts and accusations. What is needed is for sense and sanity to prevail. And without guidance from the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, there can be no sanity. Of detractors, we have had no dearth, but we have for them the same answer as Sayyidina Amr ibn al-As radiallahu ta'ala anhu gave to those who denounced him as more deluded than a donkey for his scheme of dispersing the population into the countryside to counter the spread of the plague. "By Allah, I will not respond to you," he replied, knowing that what the moment required was not controversy but positive action. As the record shows, he was correct on both counts. Much of this book was written while I was on a journey, without any books at my disposal and with my phone being the only available writing instrument. But as awkward as the modality of writing was, the flow of inspiration was as overwhelming as it was humbling. To the dear friends and pupils who assisted from a distance, I offer my sincere gratitude. As I write, the number of infections continues to climb in our country and elsewhere. Along with it, the fatality curve maintains its ominous ascent. The sense of despair that threatens to overwhelm, however, is kept at bay by the never-diminishing hope that truth and sanity will prevail, accompanied by the optimism that the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam will survive this pandemic, as it did others, and live on to fulfill its destiny. This time, hopefully, having imbibed its painful and costly lessons. If this book happens in any way to contribute to that outcome, I shall be more than amply rewarded and satisfied. Mufti Muhammad Taha Karan, Strand, Cape Town, South Africa, the 7th of Jumada al-Ula, 1442, corresponding to the 22nd of December, 2020.
شمر وكن للعلم دوما طالبا لا تيأسن ففيه عذب المنهل